All right, welcome back. White Up Collective Podcast. Finally got Austin back in here with me. So
Don't ask what episode. I didn't look.
I don't know. I'm not even trying to do
That's
that anymore. I can't
usually
keep up.
that's usually the first thing you ask me, and I hadn't looked.
Yeah.
Yeah, it feels like 3 months since I've been on here.
We're closing in on 30 though. I know that. We're close to 30 episodes. But I guess we can give a quick little recap since the reason you were gone last episode is you were in Nebraska and Iowa for 2.5 minutes, but
Pretty much.
I mean, turkey season's officially over, so give your little recap of your last little swing you had.
Drove out to Nebraska straight through. I left my house at like 2 in the morning, I think. We got to Nebraska about 8 that afternoon, and got right to it the next day. We killed 2 the first day we were there. Then 2 of the guys I was with both killed one the day we got there, and then that Tuesday we didn't do anything off the roost. We got close on 2, and then ended up killing one of them right before dark. Latest I've ever killed a turkey.
What time did you say that
It
was?
was like 8 o'clock.
Yeah.
It don't get dark till like 9 something out there.
Mm-hmm.
I think sunset was like at 8 or something like that.
When you get to this time of year, that makes it such a grind. When you're trying to roost birds at 9 o'clock at night and then got to turn around and get up at
Go back and eat.
3:45.
Yep. Yeah, because morning's not doing anything but getting earlier too. So
I know it's rough.
It makes for a long day.
Yeah. But y'all were able to kill in Nebraska, and then
yeah. So that was Tuesday. Then we left. We hunted Wednesday morning at one other spot that we had permission to hunt on, and didn't do anything there. That the turkeys that 2 of the guys had seen the day before, they were all roosted on the neighbor's place. We just stuck around about lunch and then left and stopped in Iowa. We had one more little quick go for there. We hunted till like lunch that day, and we got on a bunch of birds, but it was pretty heavily pressured. It's like everything you yelped to, as soon as you yelped, they would just tuck tail and walk off the other direction.
Yeah.
So we didn't have any trouble finding them. It was just none of them.
Well, y'all didn't really give them any time either.
No, we were speed running, just trying to find one that was interested in doing something. We're trying to make something happen fast. So we didn't really like slow work anything.
Yeah. Well, while you're doing that, I was getting absolutely whooped up in the old Rust Belt. So at least y'all had some success.
Yeah, we had a good. I mean, Nebraska was a great trip. And Iowa was cool. I mean, we were there, like I said, about 2 minutes. Yeah, we hunted one morning until about lunch, and then left. Started our way back, but it was cool. I wish we could have hunted there a little bit longer. It was pretty.
Yeah. So lost my train of thought there. I was going to say it's officially over though. Mm-hmm. So we're changing our topics up. We're not talking turkey hunting for a while. Which last episode that I did with Austin Delano, it was not turkey hunting focused, even though we talked a little bit about turkeys. But
so you just had another Austin fill in, so it wasn't like I was completely gone.
Yeah, and he had some enthusiasm instead of you sitting over there half asleep sometimes. But no, glad to not have to run them by myself anymore. And today we're going to kind of have a real estate focused podcast, so we'll be changing it up a little bit. But before we get into that, if you're listening on Spotify or Apple or wherever, go and subscribe if you're not already, or follow. And then if you would, give us a review. If it's worth it to you, please give us a review. That helps us get in front of more people. And when we get in front of more people, we can get more guests. And then if you're watching on YouTube, please go ahead and subscribe. I know we've got, on both of those, we've got quite a bit more listens and watches than we do subscribers. So I know there's a lot of y'all out there that can go hit that little thumbs up or follow button, whatever it is on your, wherever you're listening. So go do that if you can. But anyway, just jumping right into it. Today we're going to talk about getting your land ready to sell. A couple months back, we talked about buying land. And so this one we're going to kind of talk about, if you got some land, you're getting ready to sell it, what you need to do and take care of before you get ready to sell it. So this isn't actually the process of once it's on the market. This is going to be before it hits the market, what you need to do. And obviously you call any good land realtor and they'll tell you these things and they'll be able to help you with this process. But if you don't want to do that, if you want to do it yourself, this is some stuff that you need to take care of. So just jumping right into it. These first two things are going to be, this is not the land itself. This is going to be before you're actually prepping that. The first one's going to be determine if you're actually ready to sell it and if you're realistic about what you will accept for it, time frame, all that. That's probably the biggest holdup that I see all the time with people selling their property is they've got that emotional attachment to it and they think it's worth way more than the market thinks it's worth. And to be completely honest, there's just no point in even putting it on the market if you got unrealistic expectation, because it's not going to sell. It's just going to sit there and people are going to start thinking something's wrong with it. And
How do you help somebody with that? Like, is that something you kind of talk them through? Like,
it depends on the,
do you get an appraisal or something beforehand? I mean, I guess it kind of depends on the what type of land you're trying to sell. But
yeah.
I mean,
And I
like,
typically tell people don't get an appraisal because we can get you pretty close with a price opinion. We can't give an appraisal, but we can give an opinion. If you get an appraisal, it's going to cost you $500 or so, and then they're going to turn around when somebody buys it. If they're financing it, they're going to have to turn around and get another appraisal,
right.
and your appraisal is not going to matter at that point anyway. So unless you just really want to know what it's worth, or if you have some kind of tax reasons that you need an appraisal, there's really no point in getting one. But the biggest thing is just getting people to take emotions out of it. You can you can show them what property around it's sold for. You can explain everything, but until somebody takes their emotions out of it, it's not gonna matter what you tell them. And that's hard. I mean, you think about it, if you're selling something that your family's hunted on for 20 years or
Yeah.
so, and it's going to be
Parents' home place.
yeah, I mean, it's going to be worth more to you than to anybody else, but just because it's worth more to you doesn't mean that that's what you're going to get when you put it on the market. So you need to, that's the biggest thing before you do any of this is just taking your emotion out of it and really knowing what you will accept for it and if that actually makes sense or not. And the second one, as far as before you're actually doing anything on the land, is to know your tax consequences. So depending on how long you've held the property for, you're going to have a different tax. You're either going to be paying short-term capital gains or long-term capital gains. That makes a big difference whether it's been held for a year or over a year. And then, are you wanting to 1031 it to defer the taxes? If you're going to do that, you need to know ahead of time that you're going to do that, because that takes some prep to actually get ready for that. Once you sell and say you're 1031, that you're going to be under a time crunch, so you need to know that going into it. You got any tax tips?
No, I don't. I was thinking through that as you're going over them. I was going to, and it's probably something, I think we were talking about it with Steven maybe on the Forgotten podcast that we got to go back or the Lost podcast, we go back and redo, but like basis points on when the last timber sale was or what was bought for. Is that, I sound completely dumb. This is something I don't deal in a lot, but what am I thinking about? I'm drawing a blank as to what the term is. Or it's like the tax basis.
Your tax basis,
tax
on
basis.
what you've got into the property. I mean, an accountant will help you out here more than anybody. But yeah, I mean, you need to know what you've actually got in the property. It might not just be the initial upfront payment. Because when you're going cutting timber, replanting timber, all that, it's going to change your cost basis on it. So that's going to affect your taxes and what you've got in the property.
But from a new, like, say, I guess the way my brain was thinking was like if somebody was selling a property that they recently inherited or something like that, is that something they need to be looking for as how that tax basis change, or does that reallocate itself whenever they inherit it? Are you familiar with that at all? That you're saying?
When I say familiar, I know a little bit. I don't know near what somebody that would actually help you,
Right.
i.e., a estate attorney or somebody like that could help you with. But I mean, yeah, good thing about it is it's gonna come under a step up basis if you inherit it. So it's not gonna be the original cost basis. It's gonna be whatever the value is when you inherited it. So you're not gonna.
So it is going to step up for you on that. Okay.
Yeah. You're not gonna be paying. Your granddad bought it back in the 30s for
That
$10 an acre.
Yeah, that was a long way to get around to that question, but that's what I was.
If it's inherited land, it'll be on a step up basis, so you won't be paying a huge tax burden right there. But so those two things, so taxes and getting emotionally unattached to the property, are the two things that you kind of need to do behind the scenes before you get ready to sell it. But here is now we'll jump into actually getting your land ready to sell and what's going to most help it sell once you put it on the market. And the first one is just because it's the first place you go into the property, but create a visually appealing entryway. And that might be mulching a little area around where you go in, might be putting up a gate. A gate really helps. If you can put a gate in and not just have a little trail off the road that how you enter the property, that really helps. And then just, you know how it is around here. If you've got trash and stuff on the road, if somebody's been using part of your property as a dump site or something like that, clean it up, because that's going to be, I mean, before anybody even calls you to come look at your land, they're going to ride by it. And if they ride by it and well, number one, if they can't even see how you get into the property, that's going to be a deterrent. And then number two, if they're riding down the road and there's old mattresses and trash bags and whatever else somewhere on your property, they're probably not going to call you. So,
well, the two things there. One, the gate makes you it just gives people like almost like a reassurance, like, hey, this thing's taken care of. Somebody cares about this place. They keep people out of it. Whereas the trash all over it says the opposite of, oh, there's people that are dumping using this property. I'm gonna have to deal with people using it. So just like that general cleanup and prep around the
yeah,
front.
well, and a gate too. I mean, that helps you know, like, all right, nobody that's not supposed to be on here has been coming on here. These people, they obviously, they obviously have taken enough care of the internal parts of the property to want to protect it with a gate, and it just looks good. I mean,
yeah, it's just a simple
nice
confidence gate on the front, just a little confidence in it. I mean,
and
they're
you're
not
talking
expensive.
about
You're talking about
for 2 4x4 posts and a gate, you're talking about 200 something bucks and
sub
some
3.
post hole diggers.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that takes, and it doesn't take much time at all. But another thing, as far as and we'll talk about roads and stuff in a minute, but as far as the entryway goes, it really helps if you can pull a truck in there. I mean, if you just got a little 4-wheeler trail and that's all you've got, then that's all you've got. But even if you can't, even if you can just pull your truck on the other side of the gate and then it gets smaller where you need to take a 4-wheeler, that's all right.
Just
but
getting your truck off the highway or the
yeah,
road, whatever it is, just being able to pull in.
yeah, being able to pull your truck right in there and close the gate behind you and know that your stuff's secure, that's a big thing. But yeah, and just like I mentioned on that, so the second thing is going to be open up your roads and your fields if you've got some, and that can be bush hogging. If you've got big roads but they're grown up, you can go in there and bush hog. If you've just got little trails, 4-wheeler trails, stuff like that, then you may want to get a mulcher in there, and that doesn't take hardly any time to mulch roads open. But if somebody can't ride around the property, it's going to be a lot harder to sell. They want to be able to. They don't want to. Number one, a lot of people aren't going to walk a whole property, and number two, nobody wants to. Everybody would love to just be able to hop in the side by side and ride around and really know that if they do buy it, they don't have to go in there and spend all the money to put the roads in and the fields in and all that. Because especially right now, we're seeing more people buy for recreation, hunting, riding 4-wheelers, doing whatever versus, I mean, yeah, you get a timber investor to go in there and buy it. He doesn't care about the roads, but somebody that's going to actually use the property, they want some good roads on it. And
well, and that kind of comes down to probably two different things too, like selling to a timber investor type person versus selling to like a recreational user. You're going to have a premium value, I feel like, with one and a market value with the other, right?
yeah, well, you're going to want to market your property to a recreational user because yeah, I mean, they're not going to pay more than the property's worth, but an investor's probably not going to pay what it's worth, period. And investors got to make money on the purchase. So they're not going to pay even market value for it. So you're going to, you're wanting to market it to a recreational user. And then if an investor comes along and wants to buy it, then that's one thing. But all of this stuff is to market it for the recreational user, and the recreational user does not want to go in there and have to start from scratch and do everything themselves. They want it already kind of set up, at least partially, at least roads, maybe some small food plots. It doesn't have to be absolutely turnkey, but nobody wants
Just
to.
the ability to see something that they can expand on.
Yeah, and it's hard. It's hard to see some if you're just looking. Say you're looking at 40 acres. with no roads, no fields, no nothing, even if you draw it out on a piece of paper, hey, this is where the road can go. This is where a field could go here and here and here. It's hard to see it, but you can actually ride around, and even if you've got a small little clearing, it's like, hey, well, here's a field, but you could make this an acre bigger or 2 acres bigger, and you can ride around. Say, here's where a second field could go. It's just, again, it's if you can see the property. You need to be able to see the property to actually sell the property, and going right along with that as far as the roads go. If you've got any creek crossings that maybe it's a culvert blown out or it's a bridge gone, or maybe there never was a culvert where it needed to be, something like that, get that stuff taken care of, because that'll, you don't want a big
I
block.
would, yeah, I was like, I would put that in a kind of a different category. I had written down on like value adds.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
it
so,
definitely would be. Which all this stuff is a value add. I mean,
well, I'm just saying, like, say you have I was thinking from the standpoint of like, okay, you got this place, you're going to sell it. We're talking about kind of things to prep it with. But then if you said, okay, well, I want to put a little bit into it, what are things I can do to
yeah,
help improve the
yeah.
value? There's creek crossings, culverts that are in places that aren't there,
Yeah, and
roads that
I
don't
haven't thought
exist.
about, I didn't even, because we are talking about prepping your land. I haven't really considered, I thought about a few things earlier, but I didn't jot them down on that would fall into a value add category. Because I mean, yeah, that's like, you get asked it a lot more with houses, but everybody's like, all right, look, I'm getting ready to sell my house. What are some things that I need to do?
Mhm.
And a lot of times you'll tell folks, you're not going to get dollar for dollar back if you do this, or this will add a lot to it. You'll probably get more than you put in. I mean, say like new exterior paint or a new roof, you might get more because that's so eye catching at first. You may get more back on the back end for doing stuff like that than you put into it. But there's a lot of stuff that you want. So
I was thinking just in the prepping category, I was thinking like that's the running the bush hog around the roads
yeah,
that are there, or the 4-wheeler trails that are there, or cleaning up right around the front gate area, or installing the gate if you don't have one, like you mentioned. Just those are what I was saying, thinking about on the prep side, and then having a kind of a different category of value add services. That would
yeah. I
be,
guess both of them can go. It could really all go either way because
maybe adding a little bit of gravel around the gate
yeah,
area when you come in.
yeah.
Um, Same thing with the culvert, or if you have a low water crossing or something, is there something you can do to kind of clean it up, make it look a little bit easier to use?
Yeah, and I guess there's two categories to all of it. It's prep or value add, but all this stuff could fall into either. Because like, if you don't have a gate, adding a gate's going to be a value add,
Uh,
but it's also going to be a prep. And if you've already got a gate, but it's busted off the hinges or something like that, getting that fixed up is going to be in the prep category. Same with roads. If they're already there, they just need bush hogging, and fields need bush hogging. Well, that's going to be a prep. But if you don't have roads, that's going to be a value add. You're always going to get your money back on putting your roads in. But it goes both ways.
mm,
Same with bridges and all that. If you've got a spot where you need to put a bridge in, value add. If you've got one that's missing some planks or got washed down the creek or something, you got to fix that. That'd be prep. But all these things are both really
yeah.
prep and value add. Another so the last, and then we'll I guess we can talk a little bit more about value add type stuff towards the end. But um, as far as getting your land ready to sell, dealing with, I'm going to say, people problems where a new owner doesn't have to
Yeah.
deal with that. Basically, so I mean, like, do you have an easement getting into your property that's not actually recorded? Or does somebody else have an easement through you that's not recorded? It's just because you've been doing it for 25 years by permission, it's still, if it's not recorded access, that's really going to hurt your value when you try to sell your property.
Yeah. When it comes down to the banks and the lawyers getting involved to handle the transaction, everything's going to be unturned.
Yep.
So this is something that it probably breaks a lot of deals that you see, is having to either people not wanting to wait to go through the process, or people being scared of what's going to come out of it. That probably is one of your deal breakers you see a lot, isn't it? If somebody
It
doesn't have this stuff kind of ready on the front end.
it hurts it, but more than it being a deal breaker, it's just a value killer. I mean, you'll see properties that it'd be basically the same property, but one of them has legal access to it. The other one, is by permission only, or it's through a timber company or something like that. It may be just as good access as the one that's recorded, but it's just that peace of mind of, hey, this is 100% legal on the recorded one. The other one, if it's by permission only, they could revoke that at any time. I mean, you're literally going off of them telling you it's okay, and then what happens when they sell it to the next person? You don't have an easement. Well, your property just got landlocked, and yeah, you're going to be able to get an easement, but it is such. I mean, it can be such a pain. It depends on it depends on how they are, whether are they willing to give you an easement, or are they going to fight it? And
Or if you have to go to court and get one
yeah, and
awarded.
you're talking about money to lawyers. You're talking about time, all that. This you might not be able to get on your land for a whole hunting season because it's tied up trying to get an easement.
Yeah.
They don't until you have an easement. They don't have to let you on your property. So you want to get that stuff figured out for a new buyer, and especially as far as the value goes, because your land is really, unfortunately, it may be great, but if it doesn't have legal access to it, it's going to kill the value of it. And then same goes for somebody's got an easement through you. I mean, you want to have that laid out where they can't just ride everywhere, where that make sure that if they've got an easement on the northeast corner of the property, that they're only going right there. They're not just riding your place or taking advantage of their easement, all that kind of stuff to help somebody. And then along those same lines, do you have any kind of encroachments? Um, did the neighbor build a shed halfway across one of your property lines? Or even if it's not an encroachment, do you have a this
Property line
is there
dispute
a
or
dispute? But
yeah.
because I've seen some paint, I've seen where people have painted property lines, and it's just not. Number one, it won't be a straight line. Number two, it just won't be anywhere close to the actual property line. Just because you went through there and painted where you think the property line is doesn't mean that's the property line. So you don't want somebody to get ready to buy it, put the property under contract, and then goes out there to show their family something. Here comes the neighbor saying, "Oh,
Right.
you're on my land. You're not on the land you're buying. This acre is mine." Blah blah blah. You want to get all that handled ahead of time, and it's gonna because, like you said, when lawyers get involved, it's gonna come up whether you want it to or not. That kind of stuff's gonna come up, and it's gonna have to get handled, and then it may be months, and that buyer may not want to wait. They may say, "Well, we'll just go find another piece
Well,
of
it's
land."
almost like another value add service. If you're the seller, you know you have this issue. If you want to get the best you can get out of your property, you'll take care of this on the front end.
Yeah.
If you want to discount what you have to offer, you're not going to take care of it. It's going to go to closing. The attorneys are going to get a hold of it. It's going to cause a delay in the process. You may lose interest in the person that was trying to buy it from you, or the deal may get renegotiated, or the offer may change.
Yeah. I mean, and like you say, you're going to get back what you put into it. If you take care of your property, do these type things, have all the legal stuff handled, well, you're going to get top value for your property when you get ready to sell it versus you just bought the property and just did nothing, just knew you had it, and maybe you hunted it for a year and got ready to sell it and didn't improve it at all. Well, you may get back what you paid for it, but who knows what the market's done since you bought it. You may not get back what you paid for it, and you're definitely not going to get more than what you paid for it unless you're just super lucky. So
What do you hear the most from when you're taking, we were talking about some value add stuff. So like whenever you're taking people out and you're looking at properties and stuff, what are the things that they tend to like the most or tend to reference the most or something? I mean, is that something you've ever kind of,
man, people most
so that thought got interrupted just a little bit with the technical
had a
difficulty,
little bit
but
of, we thought we had all of our camera problems solved, but I
but
think we're just going to live with them. But
yeah. So what I was asking about, like, what are things that you hear value add wise, like when people go around with you, you were starting to say like most people like us or
yeah, I
the
mean,
listeners
we
like
might
we'd
can
see
see
kind
a
of
project and want to say like, hey, we can do this, we can do that, we can set this property up how we want it. But a lot of people they may not realize it, but they want turnkey. I mean, when you're showing people land, it is so hard to explain that this would be a good spot for a field. Um, versus pulling up to a field and saying, this is all you got to do is bring your tractor out here and plant and you're ready to go.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to build this field. You literally just plant and hunt. And going on top of that even more, this is kind of one of those things that you may not get dollar for dollar back what you put in. But if you go ahead and set up, or say you've hunted the property, so you've already got your shoot houses and stuff like that set up, but if you just sell it all with the property, if you're not going to take your stands down or
Right.
anything like that, and then it literally is turnkey. I mean,
Well,
somebody,
and I was just thinking about, like, if you go through a place that you do have a road that snakes around through it, but there was some thinning done on it recently, or at some point in time, you have some old logging ramps. Like, if there's any way to, like, if you're really wanting to get the premium amount you can for it, whenever you're doing that cleanup and all, like, just cleaning out old loading ramps, like where they had a timber loading ramp, like, just cleaning out little openings like that. Cause most people, like you said, they need to be able to see something. And even,
yeah,
I mean, I think even like if went on to a place like that, like, I think I'd rather have something to work off of rather than having to just go completely from ground zero. Like, having a road network with a little bit of some kind of openings in there, whether natural openings or loading ramps or that kind of thing. Like, anything you have, I think opening places up makes it more appealing for most people
yeah, and especially around here. I mean,
around here.
you go
Yeah.
over to the Delta and there's big fields and stuff already, and it may be easy to explain. Like, hey, look, we're going to take the corner of this bean field and plant it in a food plot, and we're going to slip over here on the edge of this wood block and put a field here. Versus, yeah, if you don't have anything around here, and it's grown up, it's thick, especially showing property this time of year. You can't see 10 yards in front of you, much less say, hey, this is what it will look like if we take an acre out right here and make it a food plot. It's impossible to
It's
show that without showing it.
being able to substitute what you don't have. So, like, you gave the Delta example, like, there maybe having like some grown up CRP type
Mm-hmm.
something, or maybe even planting a strip or two of some kind of windbreak trees or something. Just like you're trying to substitute some kind of cover instead of just all wide open.
Yeah.
As here, if you're in the rest of Mississippi or most of Alabama, probably you're looking at, like, how do I open some of this up where when you can walk in and actually see a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's where the road comes into handy so much because, I mean, I feel like I've said it 6 times already on this podcast, but
It
if
probably is the most important thing, though,
a
because
road system is, yeah, that
it's the
if there's
lifeblood of
one
the property.
takeaway,
Yeah.
if there's one takeaway from this entire podcast, a road system is the most important thing to have on your property because you are not going to sell a 40, say a 40-acre block. Say you've got 200 acres and 40 of it is, um, you can't get to at all. There's a creek that goes through there. There's no bridge. There's no road. Nothing. It's very hard to put any value on that 40 acres because
Mhm.
you just can't see it at all. I mean, you can't even you can't even explain to somebody, well, hey, here's where a food plot's going to go because you can't get there to show them. So,
Even from a timber perspective, like that, even that's going to dock you on that and trying to how do you haul out of there?
mm-hmm. And nobody wants to go walking back through all that stuff, especially nowadays when they can just ride. I mean, and I don't want to, I mean, I have a property listed and I don't really want to walk it this time of year. I mean, yeah, I don't mind in the fall and the winter time, but right now it's miserable trying to walk a property.
What do you get similar questions from time to time from buyers about something that would stand out for a seller that would make something stand out?
I thought about this a little bit when I was putting stuff down, and this is one of those again. You may not get back dollar for dollar, but it will definitely help your property sell. So it kind of fall into, you wouldn't think about this as far as price goes, but if it sits on the market a month longer than it has to, well, that's affecting your price, even though you're not thinking about it that way. But power and water is a huge one.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't have power and water run, if you've got a spot that you could put a camp house or somebody could build a actual home to live in and you can get power and water there. So if it's not, say it's not 100 yards off the road or something like that, but if it's kind of close to the road and you can somewhat fairly inexpensively go ahead and get power and water set up, that's a huge, huge one. more and more people are wanting the 40s and the 80s and the hundreds with a little small camp on it instead of the 250 to 500 with, it doesn't have to, with no camp or some big camp on it or something like that. They want a little small place with a little camp on it. So if you could set up power and water where all somebody has to do is shoot, you could just pull a little trailer up and just set it up and be done. That helps. Power and water is, besides roads, if you've got a property that somebody's going to want to build a house or put a camp, power and water is going to be the most important thing. And then another, as far as value add, and one that you got to be real careful about getting your money back, but sometimes it can really help, would be a pond.
Yeah. I thought about putting that on there, or thought about asking that, but then I was like, that one kind of is a little dangerous as to whether or not
you got to be careful with that, because if you don't have a property set up that can fairly easily build a pond, then don't worry about it. But if you've got a drain that would just set up perfect and all you've really got to do is go put in a dam and a control structure, then you might want to go ahead and do it, because it seems like a lot of people want some type of water feature. It may not be a pond, it may just be a little creek or something, but ponds are attractive for sure.
Yep.
People like a little pond on a piece of property.
Yep, I agree. It's like people's just general tendencies seem to be like they like to be able to see if there's anywhere you can open it up where you have some views. I'm not saying you're going to have like a majestic view in this 80-acre pine plantation, or maybe it's a hardwood bottom or something like that. Like, just having some places where you do have some long lines of sight helps. Water in any form, I feel like if there's access to a creek, maybe the road doesn't go directly there, if there's a way to like have access to a creek. Same with the pond. Like, those are just things I think are just general human nature.
Well, what we've talked about this whole time is for the recreational buyer. When somebody's going to spend that kind of money on a piece of property to recreate, a lot of time they want to be able to do it all.
Yep,
so
that's what they're looking for.
Pond to be able to fish, fields to be able to hunt, roads to be able to ride around, just hang out on their property. And then, like I said, what often helps is a little camp house where they can go out there and spend the weekend and don't have to drive out there and drive back to the house every time. Those things, people, like I said, people don't realize that they want turnkey until they see turnkey versus a project, because it makes such a big difference when it's already set up, ready to go. And a lot of these things, even if you're not going to sell your property right away, everything we've named, you will enjoy your property more while you own it if you do these things even before you get ready to sell it. And most of this stuff is not super expensive. If you're putting roads in on a 40-acre block, as long as you don't have it's not all old growth hardwood or something. It's not going to be that expensive to get a dozer in there or a mulcher and put in some roads. Like we said, the gate's very inexpensive. Ponds don't always have to be expensive, and neither does power and water. So all this stuff can be fairly inexpensive, and it's really going to benefit you when you get your property ready to sell.
Well, and the other stuff, like the little gateway stuff, the cleaning up around, picking up trash, clipping, just doing some general maintenance, bush hogging, that kind of thing. Like, that's no different if you're selling your house. Like, just cleaning it up, making it presentable. Like, you're merchandising this property like you would any other product or service you're trying to sell to somebody. Like, you want it to have it cleaned up and polished up and ready to go.
Yeah. This might be a terrible analogy, but it just popped in my head. If you're getting ready to sell your truck or trade in your truck, you're not just going to take it up there with mud all over it. Inside hadn't been vacuumed at all. You're not going to get as much money as if you clean it up, have it looking nice, smelling good and stuff, and then take it to try to sell. So it's just, you want it nice. People want to buy stuff that's nice, that they think is nice and been well taken care of, versus people that they don't want to buy a piece of land that they know has been neglected and not cared for. So that's all I got on that.
Yeah, that's a couple of pretty good pointers, I feel like.
Yeah, quick and easy stuff to do, and like always, it's not a advertisement, I don't guess, but with all of that we just named, we can help you with it at White Oak Properties. We can, especially now that we've got the equipment, we can help with all the physical stuff, and especially the market value and the tax consequences and all that. And if we can't help you, we can definitely point you in the right direction if you want some help. But so next week we've got 2 guests coming on. So the next 2 podcasts will be, I don't think either one of them will be on our typical
No, don't
hunting,
sound like
land
it.
management type stuff, but it's going to be cool. They're both going to be cool episodes. So hope y'all look forward to that. Hope y'all enjoyed this one. And like I said, please go follow and subscribe wherever you listen or watch this podcast. It really does help us. And when we're trying to get guests on, they like to see how many subscribers or how many followers we've got. And so the more, the better, and the more quality guests we can get. So we will see y'all in a week or 2. Who knows? See ya.